Hello then, welcome to the brief. I'm Jessy Chahal. It is Thursday's edition, the 31st of March, which brings us to the end of the first quarter of the year. Indeed, time has flown by, which also means tomorrow is 1st of April, and it's no April Fool's joke because our borders will be reopening for real. Well, joining me on his crisis update segment today is Nordin Abdullah. Of course, he's a crisis management analyst to talk about fighting cybercrime and women leaders in the defense sector. Also in our feature today, a little later, I'll be joined by Dato Dr. Zakaria Zahari. He is the consultant pediatric surgeon from Hospital Tunku Azizah, and he'll be talking to us about the hospital's recent success of the surgery of separating the conjoined twins. And that, of course, something for you to tune into. But first things first, here on the brief, let's kickstart by sharing some of the latest local updates. Now, about 0.4% of the total special quota allocated for the persons with disabilities in the My Step program has been filled as of February this year. According to the finance minister, the government announced a special quota for at least 1% of job opportunities for the PWDs or people with disabilities through the My Step program. And further, according to the Prime Minister, Malaysia's stable political climate has enabled the government to focus on reviving the country's economy, especially in attracting new investments. He's also emphasized that the political stability is crucial for the economy. And on preparations for our borders reopening on the 1st of April, the public has been reminded to not be complacent and still practice self-control, even as the country is transitioning into an endemic phase. According to the Health Minister, the public is still required to wear masks and practice the TRIS or TRIIS, that is test, report, isolate, inform, and seek, as well as to get vaccinated, all in efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19. And just in time with the border reopening, Tourism Malaysia has launched its strategic and marketing plan for the years 2022 right up to 2026, all to boost the tourism industry in the next 5 years. The Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture has said that the plan focuses on promotion of domestic and international tourism recovery, with greater emphasis on digital adoption, innovation, health, and safety. The 6 pillars of this strategic plan are as follows: to boost domestic tourism, to forge smart partnerships, enhance tourism promotion both online and offline, optimize strategic communication and media engagement, implement travel bubble, and undertake strategic transformation. And with that, foreign travelers wishing to enter our country this 1st April must first comply with regulations set by the Immigration Department. Criteria include sufficient finances to cover expenses during the stay, also to hold a return ticket to the country of origin, booked accommodation in the country, and also have passport validation of more than 6 months. Visitors have also been reminded to adhere to the health protocols outlined by the Ministry of Health. Well, alongside all of that, we still have many battles, and one of them is fighting cybercrime. This is an effort that requires each and every stakeholder and every member of the public. Well, the Home Minister now has said that countries need to strengthen collaboration with each other to combat cybercrime, which transcends borders, and deeper commitment to strengthen collaboration between countries is also vital to speed up against cybercrime. Well, who better to tell us a bit more about this than Nordin Abdullah himself? Nordin, welcome back on board. Fighting cybercrime together sounds a bit like a superhero episode, but tell us, what are we up against?
Well, we're up against a lot, and that's the reason. You've probably seen a lot of news lately around cyber resilience, cyber crime, cyber warfare. There's a full spectrum of things to deal with, and this is primarily because the economy is really shifting into the digital sphere, and with that, cyber criminals, cyber terrorists, and even some state-based, meaning some other countries are using cyber as a way of intruding into Malaysia's sovereign space, and we're seeing a need to address this. So at the first layer, we're looking at things like cyberbullying and these kind of things. But the next layer, we're looking at cybercrime. And of course, the Royal Malaysian Police do have a very good unit here, together with Cybersecurity Malaysia and together with a lot of players in the private sector, are now dealing with cybersecurity and cybercrime in a much more holistic manner. And this is what we're seeing. And I think the Home Minister recently mentioned, there's a need to work together on cross-border collaboration, especially on enforcement agencies, simply because with digital economy, cross-border crime and cross-border cybercrime is actually so easy to achieve. Without the collaboration between the different parties, it becomes very difficult to either find and then enforce when we're hit by a crisis.
That's right. I mean, we're looking at some stats as well. Cybercrimes went up 99% in the year 2020, from over 10,000 cases in 2019 up to 20,800 cases. That's an increase of 99% or so. And when we talk about cybercrimes as well, there are many types and variations of cybercrime, from phishing to ransomware, malware, of course, scams that go on, and hacking, and so on and so forth. What would be sort of the immediate action that we can take if we look at the very many stakeholders here that need to come together? Of course, MCMC has their finger on the pulse as well, with trying to keep all borders, aka the ones that are online, offline, ones that we can see and not, safe. Nordin.
Well, Jessy, it's about, of course, MCMC is also playing a key role here, because it's about understanding what are your digital assets. And if you understand what are your digital assets, and then look at how you're going to protect them. And then the other thing is, a lot of companies don't realize who has access to their digital assets. And that often leads to not just, some, hacker wearing a hoodie and trying to hack into a system. Sometimes it's an internal force inside your organization that has actually leaked information or leaked valuable digital assets. And simple things, it could just be simple things like databases. And this kind of digital information has now become top of mind, especially when we talk about apps, super apps, simply because people want to know that their data, their metadata, and all this kind of things remain protected. And you'll see now with the evolution of the Malaysian economy, we're looking at about 25% of the economy will become digitally involved in the digital economy, if not now, in the very near future. So it's a huge opportunity for criminals.
Yep, and that also makes sense because of the number of businesses also that have gone online post-pandemic, now that we are entering the endemic phase as well. It feels good to say post-pandemic, knowing that lots of things are happening with borders opening, and what's happening in the city center in KL, as well as the Defence Services Asia, the DSA exhibition, as well as the NatSec exhibition, which is the National Security Asia. Two very, very big exhibitions here, bringing together defense stakeholders as well. And the most recent is what the IGP has said now, that they will work closely and form strategic alliances with other partners within Southeast Asia, all to battle the sort of unseen enemy right here as well, in terms of cybersecurity and fight cybercrime. Well, Nordin, from that, of course, something that is ongoing, and we'll need to peel at it layer by layer. But we talk about the defense sector and some of the events happening as well. One obviously issue that comes up as well is the prominence of women leaders in the defense sector. What can you tell us about that?
Well, Jessy, this is again we're seeing Malaysia and the rest of ASEAN start to evolve in the defense sector, and also in the role that women will play moving forward in the defense sector. And I think one of the things that we've seen globally is the inclusion of women in especially leadership roles will allow for a certain level of diversity within the military organizations, whether it's the armed, whether it's the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, or even enforcement agencies. When you see women involved, you see a very interesting level of diversity that comes in, and actually that level of diversity is a component of resilience. So now we're talking about defense as the front line of resilience, in terms of protecting the country. You want the diversity there. You want that different level of thinking, together with the men and the different quotas around diversity as well. That ensures that you get a better solution, and this is where innovation really kicks off. And we're going to need it, especially in ASEAN, because ASEAN is becoming more and more of a strategic player in global affairs, simply because it's a growth area for the economy. With areas with agreements, trade agreements like RCEP and the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, the global economies of the world are looking for places to invest. They're looking for markets for growth. With that, the economies grow, and with that, there's a need to increase defense spending. And we're seeing that from a crisis resilience perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, indeed, more women leaders are needed in defense, and especially vital during peacetime as well, making and participating in all decision-making levels as well. Nordin, will check in with you again next week. Do take care in the meantime. And if there's anything like it, happy reopening of the borders day. I'm sure it makes us all feel a lot more lighter.
I'm looking forward to it.
Right, that was Nordin Abdullah, crisis management analyst, weighing in a little bit on women leaders in the defense sector, as well as our take and our stand in fighting cyber crime. Well, we move on now to more right here on The Brief. Let's take a quick look at business in brief. The ringgit extended its upward momentum against the greenback as the US dollar retreated amidst concerns over the US GDP data, which revealed a lower than expected reading. As of this morning, $1 stood at 4 ringgit and 20 cents. And moving to the stock market, Bursa remained higher at midday on bargain hunting in selected heavyweights, led by the financial services counter. At 12:30 p.m., the FBM KLCI increased 4.13 points to 1587.35. And a quick update on gold. The physical price of gold per gram as of 9:30 a.m. today stood at 251 ringgit and 99 cents. Malaysia has generated potential value for trade, investment, and business leads worth more than 70 billion ringgit for 26 weekly programs, all at the Expo 2020 in Dubai. According to the Prime Minister, the total value from the joint venture agreements and business inquiries involving more than 4,000 meetings. And in international business, according to an expert, Iran is key to determine the future of global crude oil prices, as well as the security of Saudi oil installations targeted by the Yemenis. Iran says it has reached a record high crude export and revenue since 2018 sections. Iran plans to increase its oil production to 5.7 million barrels per day. And as usual, in each edition and program, we like to bring you a feature segment. And today we focus on the success of the recent surgery of separating the conjoined twins. Joining me right now is Dr. Zakaria Zahari, consultant pediatric surgeon from Hospital Tunku. Azizah, welcome, Dato. Thanks for joining us.
I can't hear.
Okay.
Sorry.
Can you hear me now? Are you able to hear me now? Can you hear me now? Not yet.
I can't hear from your end.
Okay, you can't hear me from my end. The technical team will get right to it in just a couple of minutes. We'll try to bring back Dato in just a couple of moments. But here's a quick update what's just come through. The final medal target for Malaysia in the Hanoi SEA Games will be announced next month in April after a workshop has been held to make the projection. The Dewan Negara was told earlier today. The Deputy Youth and Sports Minister has said that the workshop would involve, among others, the Olympic Council of Malaysia, the OCM, the National Sports Council, the NSC, and chief coaches and team managers. Well, the final target for the Malaysian contingent to the SEA Games in Hanoi, Vietnam will be officially announced by the 7th of April. We're trying to get Dato Doctor back on the line here. He's logged off for a minute. So is the social, norms these days, and this is how it is, especially for live TV. So please bear with me as we hear from Dato in just a couple of moments. I was, in fact, very much looking forward to our discussion today, given the fact that the twins are so young and they are safe at this point of time. Dato, can you hear me at this juncture? Can you hear me now? Hi, can you hear me now?
I'm sorry, can't seem to be hearing you all.
Can't hear me at all? Again, all right. What we will do is get the team to...
Seems to be a technical problem. I'm sorry.
Give you a call. That's right. It does seem to be a technical problem. We'll get one of our team members to call you shortly and perhaps walk you through what needs to be done to log on. But it happens. Well, anyway, in our feature segment today, we wanted to talk about how the surgical team at Hospital Tunku Azizah in Kuala Lumpur made history when they conducted the first successful separation of premature conjoined twins in Malaysia. And some stats around this: conjoined twins occur once in every 50,000 to 60,000 births, and they generally have a poor prognosis. The total survival rate is about 7.5% only, and out of that, 60% of the surgically separated cases do survive. And at this point, of course, we're trying to get Dr. Zakaria to dial back in to tell us a little bit more about how that surgery went, what it took for the extended medical team, how the babies are doing at this point as well. Perhaps I could now move in to reiterate, recap on some of the local updates that's happening here in Malaysia as our borders reopen. Friends and family from Singapore can travel back and forth, and including other countries as well. What's happened just with that almost perfect timing is the tourism Malaysia, the tourism ministry coming out to launch its strategic and marketing plan for the next 5 years, beginning this year right up to 2026. All of this is to boost the tourism industry. The Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture has said that the plan will focus on promotion of domestic and international tourism recovery and put great emphasis on digital adoption, innovation, health, and safety. Refresh and new steps now as we look towards the near future, long-term and short-term, how to build back better and have continued resilience as we go through this phase. Of course, there are 6 pillars of strategic plan out of this to boost the domestic tourism industry, as well as to forge smart partnerships and to enhance promotion efforts online and offline as well. Dr. Zakaria, can you hear me at this point?
Yes, thank you very much.
Wonderful. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
And audio as well. Yes, it's a pleasure for us to speak to you. And of course, I was just sharing with our viewers about some of the stats around this. From what we understand is conjoined twins occur in every 50 to 60,000 births. And of course, that means it's rare. And the other side of it is that conjoined twins generally have a poor prognosis. And from what we understand, the total survival rate is about 7.5%. Given all of this, perhaps you could just give us an idea of what this case was like.
Well, basically, when the child was born, unfortunately, the antenatal diagnosis was not quite perfect. So it was noted, I think, towards the very end of the pregnancy that it was conjoined. So we were notified about the case after the babies were born in early March. And initially, we thought because the babies were premature and the baby seems to have separate heart, that it was possible to do the separation at the usual time of about 3 to 6 months. Unfortunately, by about a week of age, the baby started having a problem. One of the baby was producing much less urine, and the other baby was basically acting as his dialysis machine. And that would create a problem in terms of the heart of the other twin. So by about 10 days or so, we had a WhatsApp discussion in order to figure out whether this child needed an early separation. So we decided on an early separation, and obviously we needed to do the imaging. Usually the imaging, CT scans and all that, are done closer to the separation so that we could understand the anatomy better.
Yeah.
So during that discussion, it was decided to basically do the CT scans and eventually bring the baby over from Ipoh to HTA in KL for the separation. And there was another presentation that was made in order to lay down the steps of the separation and to basically assign roles for everybody involved, from the anesthetist to the scrub nurses.
Absolutely. I can only imagine the huge team here. There was you, of course, as surgery head with 6 other surgeons and 20 nurses and operating room staff were all involved in this operation. How many people directly involved during the surgery, Dato?
Well, basically, it needed a team of about almost 30 people because once the babies are separated, you need to open another theater. So you need 2 surgical teams, 2 anesthetic teams, and basically 2 scrub nurses team in order to get the whole process going. And this is the 11th separation that has been done in HKL in the past and HTA now, the new Women's and Children Hospital of HTA. So obviously we've had experience with this before, and everybody sort of understand their role, and without this teamwork, it will never be done. It can never get done properly. So in the end, the separation proceeded smoothly. Obviously, in doing this, you need to figure out everything from plan A to plan B to plan C in case things don't go quite as planned. But because of the experiences that we've had in the past, obviously we knew what the separation entails and what to expect in terms of the immediate intraoperative problems.
Well, of course, it's still a complicated and intricate procedure, and of course a surgery, but it took 66 minutes to successfully separate them, and so far no major issues. So what would their well-being be like, as they grow? Will they be able to thrive in life? Tell us a little bit more about how they're doing.
Most conjoined twins, if they don't have major organ defects in terms of having either biliary or intestinal problems, do try very well. They become like any other normal children. And especially this particular group who basically are joined at the level of the liver, and the liver can really grow back to normal. So it is expected that these twins who have other normal organs like any other kids will grow to be perfectly normal and will thrive.
Doc, you say that there are many different types of conjoined twins. Can you walk us through? Because you also mentioned that it's the 11th such surgery performed at the hospital. That number seems rather high given how rare the occurrence of conjoined twins are.
Yes, you must remember that we started doing conjoined twin separation in Malaysia from 1981. The first case was done in UMMC, and HKL started doing it in 1988. So this experience is basically from 1988 till now, which is a fairly large number. When I mentioned 11, those were the cases that I was involved in. Before I took over the position, there were another 8 cases. So this was the 19th separation altogether in HKL. So as I said, there's quite a number. The rarest of the conjoined twins are the ones joined at the head. That's called the craniophagous twins. We've never had one in Malaysia before. The usual ones are joined at the chest, and these are the ones that have a conjoined heart. So when there is a conjoined heart, it means that the twins are not separable, and usually they will die within a few hours to a few weeks after birth. The ones that are separable are typical of the one that we just did. It's called an omphalophagus, where basically the liver and sometimes the intestines are joined. Sometimes they are joined right down to the pelvic region, and sometimes they are joined back to back. Back to back is probably the ones that will be where you have the spine or the spinal cord conjoining. So in a sense, those are the ones that will survive, but sometimes they have problems with neurological issues related to the lower limbs or the bladder.
Right. Doc, you also mentioned earlier in our conversation that the antenatal was not perfect in terms of the scans. So how do antenatal scans miss this? And what should we all know in terms of doctors and expectant fathers and mothers about the impending, danger perhaps of having conjoined twins?
Well, usually the diagnosis of twins is made fairly easily. On palpation or ultrasound, you can actually feel two twins. But trying to figure out whether they are actually conjoined can sometimes be difficult, and sometimes can only be made with a very detailed ultrasound. In this case, it was suspected, but it was not suspected strongly enough that further discussions were made. So it was thought to be a possibility, and an ultrasound was actually ordered to be done at about 34 weeks. Unfortunately, the mother went into early labor, and it was at that period in which the conjoining was then diagnosed. So in a sense, it was diagnosed, but it was diagnosed quite late. If we do know that they are conjoined in the early pregnancy, we normally would do an MRI in order to look at the organs that are shared, so that we could make early planning after delivery on what needs to be done. Because sometimes you can predict that some of this may not be separable. For example, when they have a conjoined heart, or when they do need early separation. When you see that one twin has a very abnormal heart or abnormal structures, that would make the possibility of survival not be very high.
That's right. Indeed, a trying time for the entire medical team, as well as the parents, and of course for the babies as well in terms of their recovery. Dato, we want to thank you and the entire team at HTA, and congratulations on on the success, and of course to the family of the twins as well. We hope to check in with you again, and perhaps maybe even one day have the twins on the program with you. Till then, Doctor, do take care.
Thank you very much.
That was Dr. Zakaria from HTA, representing the entire medical team and telling us a little bit about the recent success. Of course, that provides us with a lot of hope to know that we have expertise here in the country and professionalism to carry us through any medical emergency. Speaking of medical, we are moving into an endemic phase, 1st of April. That big day is tomorrow. Till then, I'm Jessy Chahal signing off. Do take care and check in with us tomorrow once again right here on Bernama TV. Bye-bye.